Hello viewers, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I will be taking you through the various summaries of the 6 remaining stories in the anthology A Silent Song and Other Stories. This is coming up after I had done a video about the summary of the 8 stories in this anthology. So this anthology is made up of 14 stories. I had done a summary of 8, and today I'll be doing a summary of the 6. So at the comment section, you will find the link to my video on the summary of the 8 stories. The first story that we'll look at is Checkmate, and that is by Kelvin Baldeo Singh. So this story unearths the corruption, moral decadence, and fraud that is found in the corporate world. Sukia is the corporate secretary in a life insurance company headed by one Randall Credo. She's been the corporate secretary for just 6 years, and it is quite incredible that she has saved over 7 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars. This is not possible, and that is why she normally engages with the teller and not the bank manager, for fear that the bank manager will really come to make educated guesses on the kind of moral decadence and the kind of fraud that she goes on with. Then there comes the chess game, the game of chess between Randall Credo and Sukia. All of them are accomplices in the fraud that is in this company. And you can see one trying to implicate the other. All these are an attempt by Kelvin Baldeo Singh to criticize in the strongest terms possible that kind of corruption. Again, we have the story, The Neighborhood Watch, that is by Yngamije. The Neighborhood Watch talks about the plight of the street families that is on the streets of the African cities. In most cases, we have just been told about the street children, but then Yngamije goes ahead to expose to us that really there is the existence of street families. Of course, they are not blood relatives, but there are people who are brought together by the dehumanizing aspects of the various streets, and they form family. The family on the spotlight in this story is one, The Neighborhood Watch. It is made up of 5 members. That is from the elders, Elias, Lazarus, Silas, Omagano, the only female, and lastly, Martin. The inadequate food, lack of shelter, the disdain for emancipation, the trauma as these families forage through the various dustbins for food, all highlight the challenges that they face. Again, there seems to be optimism for these families. And when we look at the kind of organization in the Neighborhood Watch, like there is the food crew, that is those who are responsible for looking for food. There is the valuable crew. Then it is also incredible to see the kind of truce between the rival street families. They try to strike some peace deal between them. There is some unwritten law that one group should not really encroach into the territory of the other group. Then the kindness or the generosity by Mrs. Benzuidenot added to the savoir-faire and leadership skills by Elias bring out some kind of hope for these families to finally find their emancipation from the streets. Then we have the story, the incident in the park. And this story is a satirical criticism of some of the aspects of the city life, something to do with the overpopulation, the metaphorical reference to people moving out of the various offices being compared to flood really brings this idea of the overpopulation in various cities. Then there is also the laxity and complacency of the unemployed. The unemployed seem to be complacent with the kind of life they're living in. And that is why all they have is to yawn, yawn, and yawn, while the working class can go downtown to maybe eat some chips and nyama choma. With them, they are complacent and they would not want to change their lives. That is why those who are sleeping in the park, when they look at the frowning faces of the clocks of the Parliament Hall and the City Hall clock, and it seems to be condemning them to stand up and get to work, and they really loathe that. So what is highlighted here is also the laxity of the unemployed to get something for themselves. Then again, there is the traffic congestion and the mob justice. When the fruit seller is killed and the hullabaloo breaks, and in the melee, he gets killed by some of the people who are not even aware of the kind of disagreement that has occurred between the fruit seller and the police. It's quite interesting that the passengers or the passers-by decide to kill him and knowing the crime that is committed. Then we have the other story, and that is The Sins of the Fathers by Charles Mungoshi. The Sins of the Fathers as a story warns the fathers of the kind of father that they should not be. The major character here is one Rondo Ruafa, and the story begins when he is on a mission to avenge the father's unfairness, the father's ill-doing towards him. And there are some of the things that the father has done to him, and the father has generally had an overbearing influence in the life of Rondo Ruafa. When Rondo brought Selena, who he wanted to marry, and at this point is married to her, we realize that the father opposed this move vehemently. And when Selena came to visit the family, the father left in the morning and never came back. When Rondo inquired from the father, the mother told Rondo that it is because Selena comes from the Viti Ndevele clan, and they seem to have some conflict with Rondo's father's clan. Then again, it is Rondo's father, who is an ex-minister, who takes Rondo to the Draconian newspaper where he works. That kind of overbearing attitude or overbearing influence has made Rondo the laughingstock of where they are. Rondo normally stammers when he's in the presence of his father. He seems to be unsure of himself. He seems to be uncertain. And that is why Selena makes a statement that she can do better in Rondo's pants. Another thing to also note in that story, the sins of the fathers, is Rondo's mother being an antidote for the ill-doing of Rondo's father. And that is quite interesting because in houses, sometimes there is a spouse that can have a weakness. It is the role of the other spouse, maybe the wife or the husband, to cover the weakness of the spouse. And one instance where Rondo's mother really steps in to cover the weakness of Rondo's father is when Rondo thinks that there seems to be some bad blood between the father and himself. It is the mother who tells Rondo that the father loves him so much. It is just that he does not know the right way to express that love. And this one throws down the kind of controversy, the kind of a tense atmosphere that exists between Rondo and the father. Then we have the story Ghosts by Chimamanda Adichie, and this story is riddled with a lot of traditions. In this society, there are men and women who die, and at the point of their death, they normally come back. One example is this character who has been met by the narrator, James Nue. And James Nue really thinks that this person had died at the height of the Biafran War. And for that, he remembers the tradition of their people that at such, he needs to bend down, grab a handful of sand, and throw it at the person who is thought to be dead and has come back to ascertain whether he is a ghost. Then the narrator, also James Nue, whose wife dies at some point, also sees the wife come back to life after death. There are some visits that he normally receives from the dead wife. So there is the tradition of this society that they believe in ghosts who normally come back after death. Then this story also deals with the Biafran War, and it brings to the fore some of the effects of the Biafran War. And one such effect of the Biafran War is that displacement of the people from Nsukka campus, where James Nue, who is the narrator, normally teaches. Another effect of the Biafran War is the trauma that it caused in the aftermath. And we realize that the couple in question here, that is James Nue household, they lived along the Imoke Street. And after the war, when they come back in 1967, and they live along Ezenezwe Street, we realize that because of the traumatic happenings of the war and the condition with which they found their house, we come to realize that they do not pass along the Imoke Street. Then comes the issue of death. Biafran War also came with death. And one very wonderful poet, Christopher Okibo, died fighting in the Biafran army. The narrator's family, James Nue, also lose their daughter Zik during the war. Again, there is the destruction of property, especially the regalia, the academic regalia of James Nue when he comes back from exile in the US where he ran to. He has found his house destroyed Then in this story, there is also the aspect of a corruption. And the kind of corruption that has been dissected here is that exists in the university. When this person who James Noe thinks had died, and he seems to be talking to the ghost, quote unquote, they converse about a vice chancellor who has really been managing the university as his private property. He decides who gets promoted and who is not. Then again, there are also grades that are just being dished out to students who are undeserving, some based on sexual favors. Then the last story is the story December by Philemon Liambo. This story is about mental illness. And if someone has had the opportunity to read the story Memories We Lost by Lidudumulingani Mkombothi, there seems to be striking similarities between this story. There seems to be a sort of hereditary mental illness running down the Shikongo family. So the patriarch in this family is one Ezekiel Shikongo. And Ezekiel Shikongo has a brother who is called Joseph. So Joseph gets attacked by this mental illness and he's on the run. He hides, he runs away, nobody knows where he is. Ezekiel Shikongo, his brother, calls this idiocy. Then this kind of idiocy also seems to be inherited by Silas Shikongo. Though, in the case of Silas Shikongo, who is the son to Ezekiel Shikongo, the mental illness seems not to be full-blown. But what we can imply or infer that he also seems to be suffering from the mental illness is that the same way Ezekiel Shikongo, his father, referred to his brother Silas, his brother Joseph's condition as idiocy, he also refers to Silas Shikongo's condition as idiocy. Silas Shikongo has named his children after the month that they are born. And it is quite interesting that his daughter, December, is born in September, while his son, September, is born in July. So there seems to be some kind of lunacy in as much as it has not grown to be full-blown as in the case of Joseph. Then this condition is also inherited by December, who is at a hospital ward receiving medication and treatment at the time of this story. And we are told that he began catfights and fights at school, breaking things, and also giving the family a lot of headache. Just as in the story Memories We Lost by Lidudumalingani Mukombothi, this family also seemed to be visiting witch doctors, seemed to be visiting medicine men and sangomas to find treatment for December. And the effect of this disease or this condition is felt in the family. The mother really grows thin and frail as a result of the distressing disease of December. So this story really highlights the tradition and majorly the mental illness. It exposes the truth that the mental illness really exists. And viewers, that is the summary for our 6 stories. I have done now all the 14 stories in this anthology, Silent Song and Other Stories, you can look out for them in my YouTube channel. If you find the content here helpful, you can hit onto that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that anytime we produce a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you.